In the next example, we have 6 cotangent squared of x minus 13 cotangent x plus 5, and we're asked to factor. So if this looks overwhelming to you, here's what I'd like you to consider. Everywhere that you have a trig term, think of that if it had just been an x. For example, a similar problem would be 6x squared minus 13x plus 5. And so if you can think back to algebra of how you would factor this, we would have to have our first two terms would have to multiply together to equal 6. So that's either 2 and 3 or 6 and 1. So I'm going to try 2x and 3x. And then my last two terms have to multiply together to equal 5. So 1 and 5. But I have a negative middle term, which makes me think that this is going to be minus and minus because I need to get a negative value in the middle, but I have a positive final term. And so I'm trying to make my outside terms multiplied together plus my inside terms multiplied together equal negative 13, but the two final terms multiplied equal 5. So to have that happen, I think this would have to be a 5, and this would have to be 1. So let's check that out. 2x times 3x would be 6x squared. 2x times negative 5 would be negative 10x. Negative 1 times 3x would be negative 3x. Negative 1 times negative 5 is positive 5. So it ends up to be 6x squared minus 13x plus 5. So I did indeed factor this correctly. Now what does that have to do with our problem? Well, if our problem is in terms of cotangent x instead of x, then everywhere I have an x, I'm going to write cotangent x. So this would be 2 cotangent x minus 1 times 3 cotangent x minus 5. And it factors the exact same way that it did in algebra class, except it's in terms of cotangent x instead of just x.